So before we start, I'm just wondering how you're arriving here. How are you arriving into this place? How are you arriving into this moment? How are you arriving in this theater, in the Flucht, in Amsterdam Sloterdijk, on the 9th November 2022? What are you carrying with you into this room? What memories, which person are you carrying with you? What histories are entering with you into this room? How are you arriving here? My name is Reza Mirabi, and for the next exactly 40 minutes, I wish to reconstruct a memory. And I wish to reconstruct this memory together with you. This memory is not a memory that any of us here have experienced. It's not my memory. It's not your memory. This memory that I wish to reconstruct belongs to my grandfather. His name is Jawad Mirabi. And he shared this memory with me in a conversation in 1999. And this conversation in 1999 is also the last one I remember having with my grandfather. He was in that year diagnosed with vascular dementia, and he started to be less and less present. He started to be less and less in the present. 10 years from that, in 2009, he died in Tehran. I was not able to be there, neither for his death, nor for the 40 days, nor for the funeral. And this has been a bit like my ongoing experience of living in Diaspora, to be able to experience everything with a certain distancing, which is a distancing in place, but I also experience a distancing in time, which I start to understand more and more. There's a certain distortion and a delay. And my grandfather is from an area in Iran called Kurdistan, which is the East Kurdistan. And there in the 40 days after the death are very important. And there they do a certain process of grieving, which is called zikr. And zikr literally means remembrance. As I was not there for these 40 days, for the grieving and the remembrance, I feel like I could never really close something. And over the last year or so, I realized that I can still hear his voice. Like it seems like he's trying to tell me something, and he's speaking through one specific memory that keeps coming back to me. And I've been trying to listen to this more and more. And in my process of remembrance with a distortion and with a delay, I now wish to reconstruct this specific memory of my grandfather here. Practically, I wasn't really sure how to reconstruct a memory. Like I came to this question of like, what is even a memory? What is it made of? Like what is the materiality of a memory? What is a memory made of? If you think of a memory, can you tell me something? What do you think? Like one thing that a memory is made of.
Emotion.
Emotion.
Senses.
The senses.
Names.
What is it?
Names.
Names.
Images.
Images.
Imagination.
Imagination.
Smell.
Voices.
A memory is made up of so many things, and another thing that I started to notice is that when I stayed with this memory, is that it's actually not just one memory. It seems like there are other memories, as if this one memory is made up of many memories. And I stayed with this memory and I realized it's made up of 7 memories that hold this one memory together. And for each memory, I brought one stone. For each of these memories that together, as if like when this memory travels through time, it kind of touches on other memories. And it's impossible to tell this one memory in isolation. So I have for each memory one stone that I brought from Iran. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 memories. And stones are also what give the name for this piece, listening to stone beings. As even when I look at stones, I feel like I'm struggling to remember a language I once knew. Like when I look at a stone, I almost feel like they're like 3-dimensional hieroglyphics that are asking us to listen. So we have these 7 stones that are 7 memories, and they need to be tied together. And for that, there are 5 strings with which we will tie them together. The first is this. It's a red and yellow string called bassoon. And then there are 4 more strings that are not physical, or that are at least not visible. The second string after the bassoon is the melody played by Sun Jin Lin. The third string is the rhythm played by Khaled Abdu. The fourth string are the electronics by Khaled Shwedi. And the fifth string is a scent. And it's the scent of Nergis flowers, whose botanical name is Narcissus poeticus. These are flowers that cover the hills in Rojhelat, Kurdistan. And the smell is going to be released over the 40 minutes to tie these rocks together. So we have the memories, we have the 7 memories, the 5 strings, and we need only one last thing before we can start. And that is some way of carrying these memories with us from the past into the present. And for that there are 4 carriers. The first carrier are all the bodies that we have here in space. One of them is mine, one of them is yours, one of them is yours, one of them is yours, one of them is yours. All the bodies here to hold the memory and bring it from past to present. The second carrier is an Iranian pop song from 1977 called Age Yerus by Faramas Aslani. The third carrier is humming, and the fourth carrier are field recordings from my phone. So we have the 7 memories, 5 strings, 4 carriers. We have everything we need. So we can start. We can start with the first stone. The memory is from when my grandfather was 12 years old. He's still living in Rojhelat, Kurdistan. We are in the year 1939. 1939. 1939. So let us start by listening. I'm waking up. It's still very early morning. I'm getting out of bed and I slowly walk through our rooms to the entrance of our house. I take the door handle and I open the door. The air is crystalline. I take a few steps and I look up at the sky, which is a pre-dawn dark blue, and I notice how the overnight ice had mostly cleared, except on the roofs of the houses, still a thin melting layer of snow. My uncle is next to me, and we're walking together into the hills. We're walking together with the goats, and as we reach the hills, I keep walking to stay warm. I keep walking and I keep walking as the sun starts to illuminate the tops of the surrounding mountains. I keep walking and I start to notice the rushing of the river Gamaziab that floats from the hills along the village. I keep walking and I find a stone to sit on. I sit down and I just watch as the day brightens. A little bit in the distance, just over there, I start to notice a small group of dervishes, 7 Qadiri dervishes, that are walking together. Dervishes, Sufi mystics, that choose the mystical, that choose material poverty, but to find richness in other ways. In Europe, the whirling dervishes are very known, but there are so many more orders, and most of these dervishes don't whirl. So also not these Qadiri dervishes in Rojhelat, Kurdistan. These 7 Qadiri dervishes that are walking over there in the distance, they're close together, wearing grey-brown cloaks, with a belt holding it together, light blue vests, and a white cloth around their head called servine. The dervishes are walking away from the village and into the mountains. As I hear them humming a simple melody. The second moment that we're bringing in is from 1980. This means we are 2 years since my parents went onto the streets of Tehran with millions, protesting for a revolution that would end the monarchic rule of the Pahlavi dynasty. This means we are 1 year since Khomeini declared Iran an Islamic republic. And this means we are in the year where the war between Iran and Saddam Hussein's Iraq started along the border in Kurdistan and Khuzestan. A war so violent that the Islamic Republic would form a paramilitary force a youth militia called Basij. These Basiji would recruit children and teenagers, tie green headbands along their heads with prayers written on them, like, Imam Khomeini granted me special permission into heaven. These kids and teenagers were sent in thousands, at times with bombs strapped around their chests, to run in thousands into the fields of mines and enemy lines, and were afterwards celebrated as martyrs. In Farsi called Shaheed. Their photographs were hung in the streets with black borders, some of them still hanging today. And so in 1980 also my father was called by the Basij to wear a green headband, become part of the waves. Was it not for a family friend? His name is Amochoso, who was in a small town in Germany, and he had a carpet import shop, very small shop, and he would get in contact with my father and find a way to bring him there, to Europe. My father would sleep on these carpets for many months instead of running into the waves. Along the border, leading the way, running over fields of mine, green headband. The third memory. The third memory we're coming to is from 1999. 1999. 1999. It's the year my grandfather was diagnosed with vascular dementia. He started to get more and more sick, so we went with my family to Tehran to visit my grandparents. We were sitting in their apartment, sitting on the table having breakfast, and my grandfather is sitting a bit on the side, on a chair, and his gaze is distant. He's sitting there mumbling to himself, as if humming a broken melody. I would sit with him afterwards, and he would start to tell me the story of the dervishes, of his childhood. My father asks me to go with him on a walk, so we're leaving the apartment, and we're taking a walk through our neighborhood, We're walking through Meidun and Shush, and I notice block after block these photographs of teenagers. My father pointing to a photograph of a boy. This is Ali, he says. Ali, and just you see over there, actually the brick wall, and just where this indent is, that's where we always played football together. Muhammad. This is Muhammad pointing at another one. And just, you saw around the corner, I showed you the school. He went to school there together with Amu Khosrow. And on that walk, the humming continued. As the dervishes continued their walk in the hills. I noticed only now that one of the dervishes is carrying a red thread in his hand, whose one end is tied to a huge rock in the center of the village. Walking with the loose end in his hand, the group of dervishes are walking further into the hills, continuously humming as they connect the two rocks with a lot of tension, reminding me of a string phone, the one with two paper cups and a tight string in between, and the tension of the string would carry the words through the distance. The fourth memory, 1927. 1927. 1927. This is the year my grandfather was born in Rojhelat, Kurdistan, in the hills, not too far from Iraq, in Zawmin, Zawman, the Valley of Time, which is filled in the springtime with the scent of Nergis flowers. The fifth memory. 1988. 1988. 1988. In May of the year I was born, and a few months later, June, July, in August 1988, the war with Iraq came to an end. Since 1980, since the beginning of the war, until 1988, since the founding of the Basij, since the beginning of this incalculable horror, Iran killed 2 million children in waves of death. The sixth stone, the sixth memory. We're in the year 2009. 2009. 2009. In June of the year, the Green Movement, also known as the Green Wave, was happening, in which thousands and thousands went onto the streets, protesting the outcome of the election and their disgust for the newly elected President Ahmadinejad, and further for the whole Islamic regime. The Green Wave reclaimed the green from the headbands and the wave from the war, and the Green Wave became a symbol for hope. Hope for a democratic movement, hope for a different tomorrow. For many, many months, every Tuesday, people would go out into the streets. But it started to become very dangerous. The regime brutally repressed the movement, and all the hope that was given into the Green Wave had to be placed back into the heart and had to wait. During this Green Movement, my grandfather silently died at home. And we had something like a pun. Every time we would meet each other, he would place his face quite close to mine. He would smile, big smile on his face, and he would sing a certain song for me. And he would always sing the same song, almost like a greeting or like a reminder almost of all the other times he would sing the song to me. It was a little bit silly, like he would do it jokingly. And this song is called Age Yeruz. It's from 1977, from Faramas Aslani. And Age Yeruz means if one day you forget me, if one day you leave my embrace, I will become the bird of the sea. I will be left in the clutches of the wave, and I will tell my heart to be quiet, but I will tell the wind to keep singing for you until the morning. اگه یه روز بری سفر بریز پیشم بی خبر از زیر راه یا همیشه دوباره بستن همیشه به شب میگم پیشم بمونه به باد میگم تا صبح بخونه از دیاری یاری چرا میری تنها میذاری اگه فراموشم کنی ترک آغوشم کنی پرنده ای دریا میشم تو چنگ موج راه میشم به دل میگم خاموش بمونه میرم که کسی بدونه میرم به سوی اون دیاری که توش منو تنها نذاری اگه یه روزی نوم تو گوش من صدا کنه دوباره باز غمت بیاد که منو مبتلا کنه به دل میگم کاریش نباشه بذاره درد تو دواشه بره توی تموم جونم که باز برات عوض بخونم اگه یه روزی نوم تو گوش من سرا کنه دوباره باز غمت بیاد که منو مبتلا کنه به دل میگم کاریش نباشه بذاره درد تو دواشه بره توی تموم جونم که باز برات عوض بخونم که باز برات عوض بخونم که باز برات عوض بخونم After tying the string to the rock in the hills, the dervishes continued on their walk. Never stopped humming, almost in a resonance with their own humming, entering into some kind of trance as they walked from rock to rock to rock to rock to rock, until they interwove 7 rocks with each other in what is known as Azim. In Azim are 7 rocks interwoven with each other through a bazoom. The bazoom is a string that is used to carry babies, and it is then given to the dervishes to tie to the rocks. So we have 6 rocks already, 6 stones. And all of these stones happened during the lifetime of my grandfather. But this one is for 2022. 2022. 2022. This one is out of the experience of my grandfather. He did not get to live to this moment. But it is now in 2022 that a crack opens in the ground. We are enacting a break. We are enacting a break in the seamless totality of things. We are expanding. We are questioning our agency, dispersing vitality, and forming new socialities, including beings and beings that have not been acknowledged by the violent structures. It's a matter of eruptions and eruptions, blasts, flashes, fissures, fault lines, breakthroughs, screams, death, screams, seismic shifts, world endings, openings, screams, death, and the yawning maw of a dying monster. As we have come to the end of the rope, there are no more words. So we need to try to find new words to move on from here. To move on from this moment when things no longer fit together. This stone is for a person from Sakhes, just a few kilometers away from Zaman, where my grandfather is from. Just a few kilometers north is a small town called Sakhes. And in 1999, a Kurdish girl was born there. And when she was 22, she went on a trip with her family to Tehran. And when she returned to Sakhes, she arrived to her own funeral. Brutally beaten and abused, killed by the morality police, organized by the Basij. That's the same Basij that sent children into waves of death. It's the same Basij that brutally repressed the Green Movement. It's the same Basij that my father ran away from to Europe. It's the same Basij. Her parents gave her the name Jina. Jina is a Kurdish name which means bringer of life. But the Islamic regime does not accept Kurdish names, nor does it accept anyone bringing any kind of life into its structure of death. So they had to call her officially Mahsa Amini, while everyone continued calling her Jina. 2022, Jin. 2009, Jian. 1988, Azadi. 1927, Jin. 1999, Jian. 1980, Azadi. 1939. And as nighttime falls in the valley, the azim being constructed, zikr begins. We are entering into remembrance. Everyone is standing below the sky, removing their headbands and headscarves, throwing them into the flames, bending down, picking up stones to create new narratives as the walls of time collapse. And you believe in it, without a doubt, he said, with a big smile on his face. And my mind stopped. Something inside me fell away.